The 2022 Canadian Reconciliation Barometer report is out. It measures reconciliation in Canada between Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples. Moran is the Associate University Librarian of Reconciliation at the University of Victoria and part of the team that worked on the report. He's also a founding director of the National Centre for Truth and Reconciliation, and he joins us now from Victoria. Ryan, great to see you. This is the second time the Reconciliation Barometer has been done. Can you tell us about the barometer and what sticks out for you this year?
Yeah, well, the barometer is an effort to try to add an additional tool into the toolkit of helping us collectively understand where we are, perhaps where we're not, in regards to this broad journey, this broad national journey of truth and reconciliation. Specifically, the barometer does not track the calls to action. What it tries to do is measure sort of people's perceptions or understandings of feelings, if you will, of where we're at. One of the things that really sticks out this year is, well, it's a bit of a two-pronged story. On the one hand, awareness is really up, especially within non-Indigenous Canadians of residential schools. That jumped almost 30% actually, which is quite incredible. We can think about why that is. There's obviously been a huge amount of discussion in the country in the last couple of years. Inversely, though, we're not seeing a lot of engagement. We're seeing that, we've got a lot of work to do still on the quality of the relationship.
Yeah, one of the things that stuck out for me was that Indigenous respondents continue to believe that groups that have harmed Indigenous peoples have not taken full responsibility, while non-Indigenous people think groups have done enough. Can you talk about that divide?
Yeah, I think that kind of starts to get at the heart of some of the things that are holding us back, I think, as a society. One of the things that sticks out at me, in addition to that stat, is that non-Indigenous people are typically reporting now that they have a pretty good understanding of the past and the present. But when we look at how much they're actually engaging, say, for example, taking a part in cultural events or actually working on justice with Indigenous peoples, we see those numbers are very, very low. So I think in many ways, part of the story here is that Canadians, non-Indigenous Canadians, are maybe thinking we're further along the path than we are. And we really should see this as an opportunity to kind of redouble the efforts to build deeper and more meaningful understanding of really who we are as Indigenous peoples, frankly.
Well, as you mentioned, there was that big jump in the awareness of residential schools year over year. You kind of touched on it there, but what are some of the other areas do you think that more education is needed?
Yeah, I think deepening the understanding. So a couple of the stats that we really look at are we living in an equitable society? So interestingly there, the majority of non-Indigenous Canadians would say, no, we're not living in an equitable society. And this is something obviously that Indigenous peoples are agreeing with. The change that's needed is something that we really got to get people digging into deeply. And I think this is where the other reports that are out there right now, ones like from the Yellowhead Institute and from Indigenous Watchdog, that are tracking specific implementation of the TRC's calls to action, really become super important, because these are the ones that are telling us how seriously we're actually taking those calls to action, and we're 8 years out. I mean, it's December 15th marks 8 years since the TRC's reports were released, and it's telling that only a handful of those calls to action have actually been fully implemented.
Indeed. Well, hey, Ryan, we'll have to leave it there, but awesome to get a chance to speak with you now that you've left us behind in this tundra of Winnipeg. But appreciate you taking some time for us today.
Thanks for having me on.